We are recording and ready to go.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Go ahead and call the meeting to order at 10:04 this morning. As Daryl mentioned before, we do not do a roll call or introductions for everyone. He did include the link in the chat. If you guys would go in and sign in or go to the website, if you could do that sometime today, that would be great. First item on the agenda is going to be project updates. Tracy, can you give us updates on the 3 locations that still need to be installed and migrated?
Yeah, kind of. Let me look and see if Wes is on too. I was waiting for Buckley and Shriver Air Force bases. We've been working with Entrado and Nancy and Wes to try to get those wrapped up and taken care of, but as of now, they have not been.
Okay. Wes, do you want to provide an additional update on those?
Yeah, Buckley, I think, has the one alley link that they're getting an upgrade on their CPE, Tracy. They were at the GIS meeting, and I spoke to him last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday, yeah.
And so we can reach back out to him to get a more accurate update. But I think he's waiting on his vendor to do some changes to that CPE. In regards to Cheyenne Mountain, we're still in the process of getting that circuit installed for El Paso Teller. And actually, we got an update on that last Wednesday as well, just off the phone on that. So I expect that's moving forward. I still don't have an ETA on when that will be hooked up. I trust it won't be, I keep saying 30 days, but it should be 6 weeks to 8 weeks at the most.
Okay. And then just for my own curiosity, I think Kevin with DISA told us last month that Cheyenne was consolidating with Peterson. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. What El Paso is doing is linking both Peterson and Cheyenne together. And that's what this networking is about. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Wes or Tracy about those last few locations that still need to get installed and migrated over?
Hey Wes, this is Kevin Brown with DISA. Hey, after our last call, I remember speaking with Nancy about Shriver, and I think she was waiting on a report from the field engineer out there as far as there was any open actions on the part of the base that they still owed Lumen. Have you heard an update on that since?
I haven't. I saw the email on that, and it sounds like they wanted the rack or some placement moved as a part of that survey. So that's what I heard. We need Nancy and her contact at the base to update that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know any more than what you've heard there.
Okay. And I'm tracking the same with Buckley and Cheyenne that you just laid out. So I think Shriver right now is the biggest open-ended item. So
I was just about to say the same thing.
Okay. We're in lockstep today, Wes.
We are that.
All right. Thanks, Kevin and Wes. Wes, if you hear anything else about Shriver, would you let us know so we can make sure and add it to the agenda for next month if we need to?
Yes, you got it.
Thank you. All right. Next item agenda. Tracy, what about any open tickets that you're tracking for migrated PSAPs?
Let my tracker right here real quick. The tickets that, excuse me, I got something in my throat today. The tickets that we're still showing open are ones, a couple of them where we're still kind of waiting for the PSAP to work with Motorola. And we've been asked to kind of be on the side. And then there's that one, sorry guys, I'm trying to pull up my tracker for you. There was one I know that we got a little bit delayed on because Vicki has gone out on leave and Wes was trying to follow up. I think that was the Adams County one. We were having some issues with Adams County. I don't know if those have been resolved. Wes, were you able to follow up since Vicki's been out?
Sil has got that. I have not heard that is still a lingering issue, Tracy, at this point.
Do we have someone from Adams County on the line? I still have it open on the tracker, but that could be because the update didn't get to me.
I don't see anybody from Adams County.
No.
I'll follow up with Joel,
Okay.
Tracy, and I'll let you know if that's still an issue for them.
Yeah, Adams County was at the meeting last Wednesday, and my contact there didn't have any other issue on that. So I trust it's fixed, but let's follow up.
Great. Yep, I'll do that and send some information to Tracy.
Yeah, and then, sorry, Summit County was the one that we had been asked to kind of stand down while they worked with Motorola. And then the other open item that we're still showing on the tracker is kind of a long-term fix, I believe. It's where we're trying to do the 911 transfer capability across the state lines. I think that's just a work in progress.
Okay. We got some additional information from, I think his name is Aaron Gregoire at Summit County. Can I send you his contact information?
Of course.
Okay, I'll send it over to you in email. When we reached out to them about the 10-digit dialing, he said that they still had some issues on the Lumen side. So I'll send you his phone number if you wouldn't mind reaching out to him and figuring out what those issues are.
No problem.
I know last month we had talked about the crosstalk issue with Denver. Andrew, are you on the phone?
I am.
Has that crosstalk issue been resolved for you guys?
Not so much that it's been resolved, more that it's an issue that is going to be ongoing until some other structural changes occur. So it's something that it's happening infrequently enough that it's not a major issue. And it sounds like it's some items that are outside of Lumen's ability to control. I'm trying to remember the last conversation I had about it. But essentially the word I got from Lumen and from my team was that this was kind of a known issue, that it would be a major deal to fix. So we're kind of working through it right now.
Okay, so just to be clear, Andrew, it's not an ESInet issue?
Correct. But
Okay.
this is happening elsewhere.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure if there is anything in the future that you need us to help with, just let us know.
Will do.
Sorry, guys. On that one for the misroute issues, don't we just report that to the 911 repair center? We have that 800 line.
Are you talking about the LEDA one on the agenda?
Yeah,
I wanted to bring that one up and have Kimberly discuss that one.
perfect.
Because I don't think it's just a misroute issue.
Okay.
And then later on, we're going to talk about ticket reporting, just because I think there were some questions about that process. Kimberly, did you want to go ahead and talk about that issue now?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for putting it on the agenda. And the reason why we are talking about it in the ESInet group is because there's two issues here. The first one is call delivery. So we'll first talk about that one. And that is calls that have proper routing. So the ESN is correct, but they are being delivered to one of my PSAPs. So we've had calls delivered to us with proper ESN showing its destination should have been Broomfield. We had one for Westminster. We had one for Denver. And over time, we have received a handful of these. So there's something in the ESInet that is causing phone calls to be delivered to the wrong PSAP. And again, it's not an ESN anti-LA correction issue, something in that routing that needs to be resolved. We have reported all of those through the 1-800 number. Unfortunately, we have zero resolution and zero movement on that ticket. This has sporadically popped up over the duration of the ESInet. The last big push we worked on with this, we worked on it with Cindy and Vicky, and I provided that legacy information just from a historical perspective in hopes it would help troubleshoot these tickets a little bit quicker. And so far that hasn't been the case. And it had to do with a PANI not being updated in the Intrado equipment, causing a carrier to, I don't know, not deliver the call correctly. It's being delivered by Lumen, so I'm a little bit confused on that. But I'll pause there to see if there's any comments or questions about that particular call delivery, because then the next issue is different than that. So I think from this perspective, we really would like support and commitment from Lumen that they're going to look into the ESInet and work with their partner Intrado and figure out what is causing these calls to be delivered incorrectly. I can't assume it's just my PSAP, one of my 5 PSAPs this is happening to. It could just be that we're keyed in on this. I know historically, again, other PSAPs have reported this. But right now we are acting, we have, I think, 5 to 6 of them. So we just had another one yesterday that have occurred over a short period of time. Huge risk here, huge issue with calls in the Denver metro area being delivered to a Northern Colorado PSAP. Again, it's not a transfer, it is a full just being delivered with proper routing being displayed in the Annie Alley.
And Kimberly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not a default routing issue because that should be going to Aurora, correct?
Well, that's my second phase to this issue.
Oh.
So
Okay.
this one, no. Again, Annie Alley shows clearly Broomfield, has all the proper ESN for Broomfield, has all the proper response configurations for PSAP, fire, EMS, law. Every address is clearly in Broomfield. Call is being delivered to Larimer County Sheriff's Office.
So Wes, we can take that offline with our team and work with the proper folks to find out what's going on. I trying to look at this here. Do you have a ticket number attached to that, or we just need to dive in and get one internally here?
I sure do, and I've escalated it. Wes should have ticket numbers in front of him. So we have escalated it through the CenturyLink Lumen Intrado channels, asking for escalation on this issue because we received so many of them on Friday. And then again, they started to pop up again. So frequency is increasing. But yes, so we have tickets attached, and every time we get a new one, we're updating that ticket.
Okay, I'll work with Wes.
Yeah, there's a ticket number on that, and you know, Paul Brown's on it. And Kimberly, I do want to apologize to you. When you on the second part of this, we're talking about the misroute reporting. I was under the understanding that that link that Paul Brown forwarded, well, that was alien to me. I was assuming that it was the other Intrado 911 net link for reporting misroutes. So please take my apology on that. Do we want to talk about reporting that through the link? I've also got Intrado on the line if there's any questions on that.
I think that's later on the agenda. On the next issue we have is the default routing issue. So as it relates to the default routing, and this is a piece too where it's interesting on the way that CenturyLink has responded to my issue on this, where they're trying to explain and educate how the default routing works. And it seems like on the exchange back and forth on email, Lumen is missing the fact that the default routing for the Denver metro area is Aurora. And we're fully aware of that. But we up here in Northern Colorado have received default routing, and we shouldn't be. So it's very concerning and confusing when that happens. And so we did open another ticket to deal with that issue. And we should not be getting calls, default routing, no record found, dropping into my Larimer County PSAP. And that has happened also a handful of times, which gives me a lot of pause and a lot of concern just understanding how the ESInet is configured and how we asked for local default routing, and that couldn't be done in the ESInet. The great solution that we were able to settle on with Cindy was to create some default routing based on some geographic exceptions. So we have one on the western slope and then down south for our partners in Colorado Springs, but all of us along the Denver metro, Northern Colorado, eastern slope area default routes over to Aurora. However, we are getting default routes, and that I just, again, cannot understand how that can happen in the ESInet environment. So this is also an issue that concerns me about how the ESInet is set up and established. And we are asking for movement, not only from the ticket team, because again, we opened a ticket through the NOC, but we really think from an ESInet perspective, we need some attention to this to take a look at the routing and the configurations and how is this possible?
You know, Kimberly, I don't have an answer for that. I do remember there were some things I thought back in time that we had that issue in Estes Park, which kind of triggered the need for this.
The need for
Is there
what,
an
Beth? I'm sorry.
Well, this default routing, yeah, it should be going to Aurora. I'm just curious, is there any pattern to where those are coming from that you're getting at Larimer?
The Denver area, they're not local even.
Okay. All right. We will
Yeah,
revisit
so
that.
the one you're referring to in Estes Park had to do when we first all started to kind of figure out about how if a extension is not in that PBX database configured, and so during the Cameron Peak fire, folks were calling 911 from Rocky Mountain National Park and got
Right.
dumped down to Aurora. And
Right.
so, of course, we're all concerned about it not being delivered locally, which is why we had that issue originally to speak to. Um, and then the solution that was presented was being able to do the geographic, even though Aurora isn't my neighbor. I mean, that's from a Northern Colorado perspective, that was the best we were able to do from a ESInet design perspective. So yes, these local ones are incredibly confusing to me. And even if they are generated from a local phone system, PBX, it's still supposed to route to Aurora. We would love it locally, but we were told that that can't happen. So now that we're getting default routing, it makes me wonder, is there an issue in the system? And that's why we're asking the ESInet team to get eyes on this issue and figure out what's going on.
Got it. Tracy?
And Wes, can we maybe get together offline and just kind of come up with a game plan to make sure we can get this resolved?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll reach out to you both after the call, and Kimberly, I'll make sure you're included.
Great, thank you.
Of course. All right. Are there any other PSAPs or authorities on the call that believe you should have an open item that we should be tracking that is ESInet related? Okay, great. Tracy, any other project updates that you would like to discuss or things you'd like to cover?
No, I don't think so. You know, right now, what we're trying to actively do outside of some of these misroutes I shared with you is get those final few PSAPs to doing the 10-digit bidding with the new area code coming out. So we just had a meeting before this around that. And we're, like I said, we're down to just a few. So we're getting very, very close.
Okay, I do have that later on the agenda, but do you want to go ahead and give an update on that?
Sure.
Just cover it now.
I know, and you know, Wes was on that last call too. Buckley and Schreiber Air Force Base are two of them that Lumen is actively working with to try to get everything ready to go by June 1st is our goal, even though June 17th is the first date that we expect, or some of these can start going out. Fremont County and Durango are, the CPE is managed by Converge One. And they believe that they are set to bid 10 digits. They're going to test and confirm that for us as soon as possible. I talked to Carrie this morning. And then we just have Cortez County and Huerfano. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Those two are our stragglers. I reached out to some Lumen technicians here that are at the senior level to see if they can help us out with those final two locations. These were guys that were heavily part of the ESInet deployment process, and they were able to go out and fix Washington, Yuma County and Lincoln County and Rangeley. So we've been moving along quite quickly. Like I said, Converge One is fairly confident that their two are ready to go. They're going to test. We're working on our two little stragglers and then the two at the Air Force Base.
Okay, that sounds great. I know that Kathy Rayleigh had contacted every PSAP that wasn't, pretty much like you said, all of them are. Did you ever hear from Crowley County?
I don't know. I heard something about them. I don't know if it was the county that called me or not. It was one of our techs. Let me see.
Okay, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure they were on your radar, just because we had reached out to them quite a few times and never heard back from their captain there. So I just wanted to make sure they were included somewhere.
I will look through and see who confirmed that they are able. I know we worked with Intrado to give us a list of those that were not bidding 10. And then from there, we just reached out to the individual PSAPs. But Crowley County is not on my list of concern right now. So I'll confirm who tested that, and that way we'll all know.
Okay, all right, that sounds great.
Tina, did you see the comment from Jody Slate? She asked to be included in discussions about missed routes involving Denver specifically.
Yes, absolutely. We can do that. I'll make sure you're included on those. All right. On to old business. Is Tim on the line today to talk about the ECATS tariff amendment?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure. Go ahead.
I'm still waiting for some cost study work to be finalized. So that's been the delay on the Lumen side, and I apologize for that. I was hoping I would have that this week. So I'm just still kind of waiting. But that's really the holdup, is just finalizing our cost study so that we can submit the changes with an actual proposed price.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, we'll be waiting for you to finalize that and then send that out for review. We appreciate that.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right. Looks like we're on to updates for text to 911. Wes?
Well, the intent is to have the text be incorporated into the amendment as well. I think, Daryl, didn't you want to see those two combined? So we've got
I think,
that ready to go.
yeah, I think ideally that would be best so that we don't have to revisit the tariff more often than necessary, but that will also be up to the community.
Right.
Okay, Wes, do you think that will be included when Tim gets those cost figures included?
Yes, we're looking at that internally to include that basically facilitate the whole amendment process.
Okay, great. Well, we look forward to seeing that from you guys.
Yep.
Next item, Wes, do you want to give us an update on spatial call routing and maybe the gap analysis?
Yeah, I think there's really good news there, frankly, Tina. There are quite a few folks that were represented last Wednesday at Entrada for that GIS seminar. It was a pretty good sized crowd, about 40 people there. And I think very informative, a lot of good Q&A following up with the Entrada presenters. And the net of that is that the intent is for Entrada to do the gap analysis for all those who are in attendance. So that's a nice head start. And kudos to Entrada for doing that. So that's where we stand now. I think that we've got to kind of get that on track and to get those gap analysis done and visit the pricing for the state as a whole on what that gap analysis uploading would be, and then have that done as to what the TDMS, transitional data management, would be following up. So there's still, different folks in the state looking at doing their own uploading and that sort of thing. But Entrada is certainly doing all they can, I think, to jumpstart the process for everybody.
Okay, thanks, Wes. Matt, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think we're talking about Entrada doing data readiness reviews for the PSAPs and the authorities, as opposed to like a statewide gap analysis to see where folks don't have data or it's not ready yet.
Well, so the initial analysis that Wes is talking about, this is Rich Johnson from Entrada, is that initial gap analysis update. So we'll do a medium level review of the alley data versus the GIS street center lines and address points, and kind of give you a feel for where you stand currently. As part of that additional TDMS, transitional data management solution that Wes is working to get added to the tariff, that portion is more of the true onboarding. Once the PSAP is ready to move forward with GIS and deploying GIS on the ESInet, that's the onboarding process of doing additional verifications, working with the PSAP to get up to an acceptable match rate, which is hopefully 100%, getting a GOM SAG established and turning the PSAP up. So there's the initial gap analysis, which is what Wes was originally talking about, and that would then roll into a a truly efficient onboarding process, which is part of that TDMS agreement.
Copy that. Thanks.
Oh, Daryl?
So I have a question for CenturyLink and Intrado, Lumen and Intrado, excuse me, on spatial call routing in light of the announcement from AT&T yesterday that they are doing spatial call routing of 911 calls just for their customers on their network.
Mhm.
And apparently they are using Intrado to provide this service, and all of the routing is taking place. The routing decisions are taking place before it even reaches the Lumen Basic Emergency Service Network. My initial thoughts on it are that it might, if this is successful and the other carriers follow suit, that might make the need to go to spatial call routing less urgent. But long term, we would still need to do spatial call routing if we ever want to be fully I3 compliant. And I wanted to get kind of your feedback on that, if you think that's an accurate take, or what your thoughts are on how that might impact us here in Colorado.
So I can start on that, Wes, and if you want to continue, you can.
I defer to you, Rich. Go ahead.
Okay. So the Atmo press release talks about that location-based routing, and that location-based routing decision occurs before that call is sent to a 911 infrastructure, whether that's a legacy 911 infrastructure or an ESInet infrastructure. So they make a decision rather than based on cell site and sector now that they're using GIS information to determine what PSAP and where to send that call. That's that side, the mobility side, pre-processing and routing determination before it gets into a legacy or ESInet environment. For our stuff in the state of Colorado and ESInet, we are still going to provide that feature functionality as part of I3. So whether or not we don't know what the customers are doing, the wireless carriers and VoIP providers are doing behind the scenes. All we know is that when we get a call, we're going to go query location information, get that XY information, and then replot it with the information that we have loaded into our databases. Now, for an I3 and an ESInet, we may have different alternate routing rules, something called policy routing functions, that may change where that call routes. So let's say AT&T decides it should come to us for Boulder. We come in there and Boulder is undergoing an incident where they had to abandon or bug out. We would still plot that XY, decide where it should route. Maybe there's another spatial rule that says Boulder is in abandonment mode right now, and now it has to be routed to Longmont. So we still, the I3 GIS-based routing from an ESInet perspective still occur, and there may be specific rules or special event boundaries or other GIS piece parts that will take priority off of what AT and Atmo decided to do. So it's still very functional, still has a lot of necessity as to what real time is happening in the ESInet and from a geospatial routing perspective for Colorado at that particular point in time. The other thing that I3 does outside of that is delivers that call in an I3 fashion. So for those PSAPs that turn up on I3, they'll go through a new interface and specification, which is the I3 specification, which uses different methods to determine responding agencies, different methods to provide the location information and voice at the time of the call. So the delivery of that call to the specific PSAP itself changes in I3, which Atmo has nothing to do with, again, because they're an egress solution provider outside of the ESInet system. So there's a lot of features and functions, some GIS, but some protocols and specifications, some policy routing functions that all come along with I3 that isn't included in a location-based routing scenario from a wireless carrier's perspective. It'll make things absolutely better because from a Atmo perspective, going from a cell site and sector routing scenario to using the actual XY to pick which PSAP it goes to should reduce, and I'm not going to use the term misroutes, but should reduce the amount of times that it's routed to perhaps the initially incorrect PSAP. But also, we're still going to take that call. We're still going to do the proper things that we need to do to verify that location, to see if there's any additional GIS rules in effect. We're going to decide what PSAP that is, or what alternate or default PSAP it should be, and then we're going to deliver that call in an I3 fashion. All of that is outside of how the wireless carriers decide where and how to route the call. Does that make sense?
It does. And it makes sense a lot as to why we would still need to move forward on our own side. One question I still have, though, is my understanding is that Intrado is AT&T's partner in providing this geospatial routing for their carriers' callers. If that's the case, and Intrado has the GIS data necessary now to do geospatial routing for AT&T's wireless callers, why can't that data be used instead of building our own data set for Colorado using TDMS and other tools?
Sure, that's a good question. So that solution is maintained on the Intrado mobility side of the house with mobility wireless boundaries. To be honest, I don't know how those are determined. On the ESInet side of the house, we use those boundaries that are, there's multiple boundaries that we use from a PSAP boundary perspective, our street center lines, our address points, our police, fire, EMS boundaries. So there's more information that we need from an ESInet perspective with all of the I3 protocols and specifications to deliver that call to the PSAP I3. I apologize. I don't know the process and procedures they're going through from a boundary perspective on the mobility side of the house.
Thank you. And Matt, you know a lot more about GIS than I do. Did my questions spark any questions for you, or maybe my questions were dumb? I don't know.
No, I think they were good. I would have nothing to add or ask more at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich.
Now, just in addition to, that's one carrier. Hopefully, I think it does make the solution much better. So hopefully other carriers take that approach, because I do think it makes the overall 911 solution much better. But most carriers don't at this point. So all the other wireless carriers, to my knowledge, don't, but don't quote me on that because I don't know all their solutions, but all the wireline providers, all the CLEC and VoIP providers as well. So, we, the ESInet, will do that location validation on all calls.
Yeah, the press release from AT&T said they were the first, so I'm assuming they're the only so far.
I think so too. I didn't have any part to do with that press release or verification. I just want to tell you what I know and what I don't know.
Matt, go ahead.
I think we still need the TDMS, at least insofar as routing based on civic addresses for landlines, Daryl. However few we may still get. That would be one reason why we would still need to do that.
Right, and all of the other things that Rich mentioned that an ESInet needs for full I3 compliance.
Yes.
I just know that geospatial routing of wireless calls is one of the most urgent needs for geospatial routing, and if the other carriers follow AT&T, then that may get resolved without us making any changes. But you're right, there are still other reasons why you need a full statewide ESInet and GIS data set.
All right. Thanks, Rich, Daryl, and Matt. Good conversation. I appreciate that. Does anybody else have any questions on spatial call routing before we move on? All right. Tracy already provided us the update on the area code overlay and the 8 digits. I think we're looking pretty good on that. Like she said, we just have the military installations and the few stragglers that she was going to work on. So we'll try and get an updated list to everybody when that is completed, just to let everybody know that those have been taken care of. Tracy, I know that Vicky's out. Do you have an update on the Alley hardware?
I don't. She does have, I think, James Knight was working on that for her, but we can follow up on the hardware
Okay.
issue.
All right,
Not
that
sure
would be
if she'll
great.
be back.
All right, thank you. All right, on to new business. Ticket reporting to Lumen. Kimberly, you want to talk about that?
I think we may have it resolved. I was given a link to a ticket portal to enter tickets for Lumen/Entrado issues, but that link was not customer facing. So our process of calling the 1-800 number or going through the 911 net is still the valid place. So we do not have a change in our ticketing processes. So I don't think we have anything that we need to further address here because I think it's been resolved.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Kimberly, the other agenda item we had on there was the one that you asked us to add yesterday. The
Yeah.
outage.
Yeah, so I'm just dominating the entire agenda today, and I do apologize, everyone. Just from an awareness perspective, and we're going to follow up with Daryl and Lumen. We did have a 911 outage on Friday, and we had a workaround in place not until Saturday, and then a full restoration yesterday. The reason I'm bringing it up to this group is just some of the terminology used from the field tech was 911 landline trunks, and they busied out 3 911 landline trunks that were coming from Denver Cap Hill up to the Loveland CO. And that's how they were able to then reroute traffic to the 911 Broomfield landline trunks. And all of these terms just gave me a ton of pause and concern. And so of course, I'm perplexed. We have SIP sessions. We have 46 SIP sessions. The Lumen Tech also indicated that all of the 911 trunks, landline trunks, had dialable numbers. So my head's going back to prior to 2020. And it was just really concerning, making me think I don't understand anything about the ESInet. And by golly, I chaired this committee for several years, and so I'm perplexed, and I wanted to bring this up to the group because many of us on this call have had 911 outages. Here or there, fiber cuts, alley issues, but this is the first time I've heard those terms being used since we've migrated to the ESInet. So from a big picture perspective, where we are with this is we're going to be working with Lumen and just really trying to deep dive and understand what happened. And we also are going to deep dive and understand a little bit more about call flow, because I think there's a lot of pieces here that I need to get my head around. And then that conversation could be a good conversation for this group or the task force.
Yeah, Kimberly, I think that's a great idea. I think if you're identifying things that maybe weren't in the original schema or things you don't understand, if we could maybe diagram things out and share it with this group, just to share as much education as possible so we all know exactly what's being talked about when the text mention things.
This is Daryl. As long as we got Lumen and Entrado on the call today, can I just ask, are there still landline 911 trunks? Are there still CAMA and SS7 pathways being used in the network?
Well, this is Wes. I'd have to defer. I'm not. We'd have to go back with the engineering and see why were the techs using that particular. It should just be ES trunks at this point on to the aggregation points. So we're going to have to circle back on that.
This is Rich. I think it's a use of old terminology in the new system, to be honest. Are there still SS7 trunks out there in the infrastructure? Yes, there are, because typically those telephone service providers have to get to IP aggregation points one way or another. So that may be the miscommunication there as to what side. We'll have to look into it to see what this exactly means, but there are a lot of Felix wireline carriers, even wireless carriers at this point, may not have the IP capability to send it directly into the system. So there may be a point getting it into the system that there's still traditional trunking.
Right, but after the aggregation point, once it's in the ESInet, it
Then
should be
it's all,
IP the
yeah,
whole
it's
way.
all IP. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
good.
all IP. So my guess, if it is on that side, and I apologize, I just don't understand the end-to-end scenario here. You know, they may be looking at a fiber or twisted pair copper and say, oh, that's a landline trunk. Well, it's an IP network, but maybe they're still calling it a landline trunk for 911 purposes. So we'll just need to look into it.
Okay.
So just to follow up on an IP network, my understanding is we don't have dialable numbers.
Yes, I would agree there too. So yeah, we'll need to take a look at, I don't understand what was being said. So we'll need to investigate. I'm just trying to make guesses at this point.
Yeah. I understand, Rich. And we do have of course, the ticket was pulled and Paul was the point of contact with Lumen on that issue. So, and we have some follow-up that we're going to do with Tim Kunkelman, like I said, and Daryl. So, if I spent time fighting what the tech was telling me in the troubleshooting process because he was taking a walk down memory lane with us. And I was like, that's not 911. Cap Hill, Broomfield are not part of the mix of the 911 call routing, and I don't have landline trucks, and you can't call them and busy them out. So it was definitely an interesting outage for us to walk through. So one I think will be very beneficial for us to dissect, explore, and get educated on, and then share that information with this group.
Agreed and understood.
Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate you bringing that up and look forward to hear what you learn on that. All right, the next item on the agenda is from PSAPs or authorities to Lumen. If anyone on the call has anything about ESInet projects or where we're going, this is your time to address those concerns. Okay, the next one, the reverse. How about Lumen to PSAPs or authorities? Do you guys have anything additional to add or any questions?
I don't think anything, Tina, other than what we've already been talking about on those issues that Kimberly's brought up. We obviously need to circle back on those, but also on the amendments, we've spoke to those 3 items that we're going to be doing. So nothing else to add.
Okay, great. Thank you, Wes. The next item on to public comment. Anyone that is on the call that is a non-voting member, this is your time to provide any items for us to consider or discuss. All right, hearing none. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to discuss that was not on the agenda? Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, we're sending out high-level gap analysis surveys for GIS data. We being the Task Force GIS Committee. If you didn't get one and you feel that you or someone that you work with should fill out that survey from either a 911 stakeholder or local government GIS stakeholder perspective, please get in touch with me and I'll send you the link. The purpose for this, we're sort of working a little bit with the State Office of IT GIS Division, is to do sort of a very, very high level review to develop a statewide picture of where we don't have any GIS data and or maybe where it's weak, and also to assess relationships that may or may not exist between the local 911 and GIS stakeholders, so that we can sort of better understand where maybe the resource center and other folks need to start doing some more communication to see about GIS data readiness.
Great, thanks, Matt. Anybody else? All right. Oh, Matt, do you see that comment?
Yes, I do. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here today and contributing. We are adjourned at 10:49. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.